Hey everyone, Pugs here with one new review for y'all. Well, shit. Today's episode is Have You Seen This Snail, which is a big episode for me, CEO of Gary the Snail. How y'all like my visuals today? I was struggling to figure out what I might do, and I thought that perhaps simpler is better. Anywho, just gotta say thank you to everyone watching today, and it's extra special today because of this Gary focus, so seriously, thank y'all. Now, let's just get right into it. I have to be honest, this episode was a surprise. I wasn't planning to get to Have You Seen This Snail so soon, which is funny because I said the exact same thing when I reviewed this episode a year ago. I guess it will always surprise me, but never in a bad way, because I love Gary the Snail, so an episode like this is a lovely surprise, in a sense. Have You Seen This Snail is one of the most famous SpongeBob SquarePants episodes of all time, almost entirely because of the famous tear-jerking Gary's song. But let me put a pin in that particular discussion as I'll be getting to it later. Let's just start going through the episode. So, this special starts out decently enough. I'll be honest, I wasn't thoroughly entertained by the first little bit of SpongeBob struggling to carry the snail food, and Patrick acting like an idiot and dragging the whole thing out, but despite how it might sound, the scene wasn't too frustrating for me, and so I'll give it at least somewhat of a pass. I also thought the painting of SpongeBob holding the note was visually interesting, to say the least. And one thing I like about this episode is that it lets us know pretty quickly what the plot is going to be with that shot of the snail food outside of the door. I like when episodes get to the point quickly. Not that I ever really complain about quote-unquote filler, which is another one of those common modern SpongeBob hater arguments that I disagree with, but I still like conciseness. Anyway, from here we move pretty swiftly into SpongeBob playing with the paddle ball. Thankfully, SpongeBob saying darn it repeatedly is not grating, which is honestly quite impressive. That means I don't get annoyed by it. And I also like how the to-the-pointness of this episode extends in-universe in a way, as Gary wastes absolutely no time getting the hell out of that house when SpongeBob starts neglecting him because of his preoccupation with the paddleball. There's no need to drag this scene out because we all get the point that SpongeBob is neglecting Gary, and the episode understands that. Another thing I like is that even though SpongeBob is clearly in the wrong here, he's not made out to be a complete idiot or asshole, unlike a certain other famous, or rather infamous, episode. It just makes things more pleasant to watch all around. And one other great thing that's great about this point that I just made here is that not only does this episode execute this plot in a way that doesn't make SpongeBob, or that in a way that makes SpongeBob not an asshole and doesn't make us dislike him, but it's also pretty in character for SpongeBob. I mean, we know that SpongeBob is a little bit of a perfectionist, not to mention that his propensity to get caught up in things is nothing new. He does the exact same thing at the Krusty Krab, except this kind of behavior is rewarded there. Honestly, I find SpongeBob's behavior involving the paddleball here to be a decently accurate portrayal of what it's like to hyperfocus or even hyperfixate on something, since as a person with ADHD, I have experienced both of those things. And actually, let me get on my soapbox real quick. Y'all, there's a reason ADHD is a disability. Hyperfocusing is not some quirky little superpower moment where you can get all your shit done in 2 hours, okay? It's ignoring literally everything around you because you are stuck on whatever you are doing for however many hours. Hyperfixations work much the same way, except they're longer, like days and weeks. I also think that hyperfixations are more in the background than hyperfocuses, at least the way I experience them. With a hyperfixation, I can still turn my attention to other tasks and such, but at some point my mental wherewithal gives up and I'm back to whatever I'm hyperfixating on. Hyperfocusing, it's like I'm paralyzed. So that's why I can see myself in SpongeBob here. Doesn't excuse what he's doing, and the episode itself does not excuse SpongeBob even as it treats him with understanding, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in here. Moving on off the soapbox, I like the scene with Patrick checking in on SpongeBob. I liked the fake out with the bag, and then I really dig the eerie feeling when Patrick goes searching for SpongeBob and his pineapple. Hearing those muffled darnets really add to the scene, I think. And then I love the drama of SpongeBob being revealed hunched over in the harsh light with all his stuff knocked over. SpongeBob pretty quickly snaps out of his focus on the challenge, and he realizes that it hasn't just been a few hours, it's been 10 days. Again, everything I said about this being very hyperfocus, or in this case hyperfocusing during hyperfixation, at least the way I define those two terms as experiences, still applies. And what I like about this reveal is that it retroactively works to make viewers not see SpongeBob as this completely unlikable guy. He didn't realize he was neglecting Gary, but he still takes responsibility, as he should. He spends the rest of the episode trying to make his behavior up to Gary. I just really like that. It's a very mature way to tell this story, I think. I guess to me, I think it's better to write episodes where characters do unlikable things for understandable reasons than episodes where characters do unlikable things and are made out to be unlikable. It makes the story more satisfying and less frustrating. Alright, let me move on. So this episode is full of iconic moments, and many of them happen in these next couple minutes after Patrick checks in on SpongeBob. So there's the gag with Patrick and the milk, which I find hilarious. Perhaps this moment isn't really iconic, but it has been given some life through memes, so I'll count it. And speaking of memes, another iconic moment is SpongeBob and Patrick barging into Squidward's house to look for Gary, and this moment was, of course, made famous by the X drops by Squidward's house memes of yore. I love those memes, by the way, they're hilarious. I also like a Sparta remix that was made using that scene. Yes, I watched those in 2024, what do you want me to say? And lastly, I of course simply cannot discuss iconicism without discussing the most iconic part of all, Gary's song. What can I even say about this work of art? First off, I adore the visuals of this song. They're beautifully painted and the animation here looks really cool. And then secondly, just the construction of the song itself is great, from the lyrics to the instrumentals to the vocals. If you've never heard the instrumental of the song, I recommend you do. I've got a link in the description to a video of exactly that. And back to the vocals of the song for just a second. But God, this song is so well and beautifully sung. Altogether, Gary's song is simply a masterpiece, and it's completely understandable why it's one of the most well-known songs of the show. Not to mention many people's favorite. And before I move on, I gotta give a quick shout out to Billy Cobb's punk rendition of this song. It's real good. I've got it linked, you already know, and y'all should listen to his original music. It's excellent. I recommend his album Forgotten Words. I really like that one. Anyway, all this talk about music is a good transition into talking about some other production things about this episode that I like. Well, I guess I'll start with the other song I wanted to mention, Where's Gary? This is the far less known song to come out of this episode, which is a shame because I low-key like this song more. I like the lyrics, I like the beat, I think Tom Kenny went off while singing it, it's just a really good time all around. And then another thing I like about this episode is the art. Oh my god, the art. Y'all thought I'd go without mentioning all these gorgeous backgrounds when Gary is running away? Nope, absolutely not. These are so good. Why do you think I made it the background of this video? It's just so good. Okay, I think we can consider that to be a brief, but not actually brief intermission. But let me get back to talking about the rest of this episode's plot. The first half of this episode is more rife with SpongeBob and Patrick, but the second half is more about Gary. And I've kind of just been talking about the SpongeBob and Patrick stuff, so let me turn my attention over to Gary's segment. His parts of the episode are great. They aren't particularly funny, but what I really like about them is how ripe full of tension they are, especially once things start getting, questionable. What with those shells and all. You guys know I love a palpable atmosphere, and the horror one of Gary's segments is so great. I also just really love how Gary missing SpongeBob is portrayed here. I also like how it's Gary seeing SpongeBob's flyers made to find him that he realizes that maybe he's got to get out of here, which is then immediately followed by him finding the horrifying closet full of dead snail shells, which is really what tips him off. Finally, we reach the end of the episode, which is just so damn wholesome. SpongeBob despairing at the Gary on the billboard is funny while also being just a little bit sad. And then I love the moment we see Gary make it back to SpongeBob, and when SpongeBob realizes Gary is there, God, this moment is so cute. Also, because I can't keep my mouth shut when it comes to production things today, I love the backing track used in this scene, Celebrations. I wished it was used more, but I get why it isn't. But anyway, back to the ending. I really like the ending because it's satisfying and earned by all parties. Gary is most certainly going to be doted on by SpongeBob now, making up for SpongeBob's behavior, and SpongeBob has gotten his beloved pet back. In a way, I suppose you could call this episode very anticlimactic, but I'm okay with that. Really, this episode already had me because I love the entire idea of this special. It's got everything I need, giving Gary the spotlight and showcasing the relationship between SpongeBob and Gary. Especially with Gary's song, you can really feel how important this relationship is to both parties. It's touching. And you know, I've been waiting for a really good SpongeBob and Gary episode, and I finally got it here. Have You Seen the Snail is a great special, full of funny and emotional moments, as well as iconic moments everywhere. Definitely a worthy addition to my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine, and I bet that score was lower than you expected, wasn't it? With all my ranting and raving, even I'm surprised there wasn't some decimal points on that bad boy. But I suppose it is true that this episode does have a couple of weak points. While I am okay with the anticlimacticness of the episode, it is true that things feel a little too easy in a way, but that barely makes a dent in my enjoyment of this thing. It's more that I honestly feel like we didn't get enough Gary here. I think it would have been nice to spend a little more time with him, but obviously these are all nitpicks, and honestly, I could see this episode being maybe like zero point 0.2 points higher. Of course, I'm not changing the score though. Also, I couldn't fit this anywhere in the review, but did anyone else play that old Flash game on Nick.com that was based on this episode, Trail of the Snail? Man, that game was so fun. It had some good music too, from what I can remember. I know that the SpongeBob community, another forum, has put together a whole bunch of the old Flash games into playable versions. I'll link that in the description in case y'all want to be put on. I've been playing my favorite game lately, Poop That Jaw Down. Now that was a game. You know what else was a real game? Oh Snap Road Trip. Alas, that one has not been brought to the new ages. Alright, well, now I'm just getting completely off topic, so let me just go ahead and close things out now, and I'll see y'all in the next review.